from the New Arts and Media Studios in Milwaukee, I'm Charles Purcell. This is The Log. Well, of course, I always have to tell you when I'm recording this because the news moves so fast that I'm sure there are developments, there are things you've learned between the time I'm speaking and the time you hear me. So I'm recording this on Sunday afternoon. It was just last night we learned about the bombs falling on Iran. And who knows where it goes next. We'll talk a little bit about that. I don't want to devote the whole episode to that, but we will talk about it a little bit here at the top. And then I want to make sure we spend a little time on the very big, very bad bill, which is still working its way through the Senate. It's very important that we keep our eyes on that monstrosity. We know what's in store for us if the damn thing passes, and we feel compelled to write and call your member of Congress. Okay, let's see. Here are my initial thoughts on the Iran strike. You can guess, probably, I'm against it. It's a very big, very bad idea. The parties at play here, it's hard to take sides because Israel is not a democracy. Iran is not a democracy. At this point, the United States is not a democracy. It's a bunch of bad guys fighting each other. I'm not talking about the nations themselves. I'm not talking about the people. There are many fine people on both sides, to coin a phrase. Yeah, no, seriously. The governments, as they're currently instituted, are just deplorable. In so many nations, most nations, I don't know. Certainly in these three, Israel, United States, Iran. Very little to be happy or proud about these current regimes. All right, let's talk a little bit about the strike itself. Well, after 33 years, Netanyahu, the dictator of Israel, finally found a United States administration dumb enough to do what he's been asking for those 33 years. He's been begging every U.S. president for the last 3 decades to do what he convinced the Orange Menace to do. And of course, the Orange Menace is the only U.S. president who would do it because he's a complete and utter moron. He doesn't know what he's doing. He's a toddler with bombs. And of course, it's always a good idea to bomb the Middle East. That always works out. That's just the way to go. That's just brilliant. To state the obvious here, only Congress, of course, can authorize war. Again, small d, democracy. That has to be our North Star. We can never take our eyes off that prize. Democracy. Democracy. No one single person should ever have this much power. Even if it wasn't the Orange Menace, even if it was the most benevolent, wonderful person you can imagine, no one single person should have this much power, let alone someone with the obscene lack of character as the Orange Menace. The people of the United States don't want this. Too many do. Too many are falling in line. I can tell you that the people of Iran are not fans of the regime. I heard a pro-democracy Iranian activist somewhere the other day, and she claimed that the regime only has 15% approval. Now, I don't know if that number is exactly right, but even if she's off by 100%, it's still a small minority, which is the minority I keep talking about here. The MAGA minority is extremely small. Other people, uninformed, so-called in the middle, they want to fall in line for one reason or another, but the actual support... Anyway, I'm getting off base here. Yeah, only 15% approval, and let's say she's wrong by maybe it's even 30%. The point remains the same. Authoritarian regimes don't need public approval. That's why I keep yelling about what's happening to the United States. They don't have the numbers. They'll never have the numbers. Their popularity could even drop to 30% or 15%. They don't need that. They have power. The dictatorial theocracy of Iran has been in power for decades. This is what we face as a nation. a dictatorial theocracy, a white supremacist oligarchy with 15 to 30% approval, and nothing we can do about it. This is our future unless we act. Pro-democracy. And I think it's got to be global. What else? Well, we got big, as they call them, bunker-busting bombs, other missiles sent from, I guess they were submarine launched. All illegal, unconstitutional, violates international law, unprovoked attack of a sovereign nation. No consultation with Congress, except I guess I heard that Speaker Johnson and Leader Thune, Republicans, were briefed before it happened. They weren't consulted. No, they were just told. And I guess it's okay now just to tell one political party? Yeah. This is an authoritarian state we're living in. So, illegal 100 different ways. No consultation with Congress. No consultation with the allies, with the United Nations. As I said, war powers belong to Congress. Read your Constitution. The president is authorized to take his own initiative if the threat is imminent, and no expert, no intelligence, nobody claimed that the threat from Iran was imminent, or eminent, as Pete Hegseth would say. Only Netanyahu, of course. He said so. So we'll just take his word for it. And he got into the Orange Menace's big, dumb orange ear. No, his ears aren't orange, actually. He doesn't blend the orange makeup into his ears. There's that weird line right around the ear. He's got white ears. So they claimed that the attack was justified based on the word of Benjamin Netanyahu and against the findings of every other intelligence agency in the world, or the IAEA for that matter. We'll get to that in a second. And all he does is lie. That's all they ever do. We don't know the damage. He said that their nuclear facilities have been obliterated. We have no way of knowing that. Yeah, these are the same people who told us that almost 7,000 military troops were needed in Los Angeles. That was justified. Same people. Yeah, let's talk about the International Atomic Energy Agency for a second. Just this morning, Rafael Mariano Grossi, he's the Director General of the IAEA, told Fareed Zakaria on CNN that the findings of the IAEA determined that Iran had no plans and no systems regarding nuclear weapons. Now, I'm not going to get outside of my lane here. I'm not going to pretend to be an expert, but you have to have a certain amount of enriched uranium, and then you have to have the technological wherewithal to attach that to a delivery system of some sort, a missile, a weapon. And the IAEA was concerned about Iran's enrichment program. Iran was not being open with inspectors, much of that due to the Orange Menace himself, who tore up Obama's nuclear agreement with Iran. Again, I'm not going to get into big detail because you don't want to be hearing this stuff from me. I'm not the expert. But I'm just telling you what I know. The IAEA had concerns, but not about weapons, not about deployment. No plans, no systems. Those are quotes. That was this morning. So everything you're hearing from the Orange Menace and his repugnant allies are in direct contradiction to that. They're in direct contradiction to United States intelligence. They're in direct contradiction to European intelligence. They're relying on one source and only one source, and that's the word of Benjamin Netanyahu, career liar and war criminal. So that's the basis on which the Orange Menace made his decision. He's a sock puppet for the strong men of the world who he wants to emulate. And when they flatter him, he loves it. There's nothing he loves more than kind words from Putin, from Xi, from Orban, from Modi, from Netanyahu. So now we don't know what happens next. There are approximately 40,000 U.S. troops and a couple of dozen military bases, all within striking distance of Iran. Not to mention every American, every Israeli, every European interest or individual in the region, now a target. Not to mention here where we sit comfortably, threats of cyber attacks, threats of so-called lone wolf attacks. So, as the Orange Menace loves to say, we'll see what happens. That's his favorite little go-to non-statement. Yeah, we'll see what happens. One more just little brief kind of a side note here. We got the MAGA peaceniks, the Marjorie Taylor Greens, the Tucker Carlsons, the Charlie Kirks, and Alex Joneses, who up until now have been vehemently opposed to this kind of strike. We don't know where that's going to go from here either. I think they'll probably fall in line. I think they'll buy the Orange Menace's rationale that this can be a one-time, big, old, manly strike, and it will not lead to a war. Because that's what MAGA has been pretty consistent about for years. No more drawn-out entanglement in foreign wars. They hate that. So I think they're going to buy that argument, or at least use it as an excuse to get back into good graces with the Orange Menace. Oh, it's not going to be a war, really. We're just really tough, and we can drop our bunker busters. And sure, Iran might respond with something, but it'll be like when the Orange Menace assassinated General Soleimani. It'll be limited, and we're all going to be okay. Yeah, so I think they're going to get back in line. And it's not a time for those of us on the right side of history to take any joy in their fight. Let's not get involved. Let's not give it any of our energy. Let's keep our focus on our own moral and political center. And then, kind of related to that, I also have to mention, I think in just the last episode, I've said a couple times, that I think the Orange Menace is a chicken hawk and that he'll never pull the trigger. Well, I guess you could say I was wrong about that. He did pull the trigger. On the other hand, as I just alluded to, I think my chicken hawk theory still holds because I think he believes what Netanyahu told him. This is a one-time clean hit. I promise you there will be no war. So I'm not really rescinding my original theory. I still think he's a chicken hawk. I just think he thinks he could get away with this. Like the kid on the schoolyard who sucker punches you and then runs away. He doesn't want to fight. He's just a natural a-hole. So, yeah, like I said, I hate to even use the phrase, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. All right, we got to talk about the very big, very bad bill. It's working its way through the Senate. You're going to see headlines about how some senators are unhappy. Murkowski, Collins, give me a break. They'll fall in line, and they can afford to lose 2 or 3 and still pass the thing. So don't get too excited about that. The Senate and House versions of the bill are not that far apart. They're details at this point. So please don't take great comfort in the sensational headlines that tell you, oh, the Republicans are fighting with each other, and Senator X or Senator Y says, no, I'll never vote for this bill. And no, don't take any comfort in that. That's the press doing what it does, trying to make headlines, trying to get clicks, trying to always increase conflict, shine the light on where the excitement is. Believe me, the real news and the real danger lies outside of that shining light. There are bad, bad things happening in the weeds, happening behind closed doors. So we have to absolutely keep the pressure up on the very big, very bad bill. It's still the greatest wealth transfer in history from poor people to rich people. In many ways, the Senate version is actually worse. It's worse on Medicaid. It's worse on guns. It'll sell 250 million square acres of public land. And no one is refuting the fact that up to 50,000 Americans, please hear that number, up to 50,000 Americans will die over the 10-year span of this bill as a direct result of the legislation, mostly because of the changes to Medicaid and health care generally. That's not even to mention the people who are going to die. Again, not hyperbole, fact. People are going to die because of the policies of the madman RFK Jr. That's another story. And while we're already at the depths of this conversation, it's been estimated that 300,000 people have already died worldwide for lack of life-saving food and medicine once provided by USAID. And with USAID being eliminated totally, hundreds of thousands of more lives will be lost, lives that otherwise would have been saved. So that's where we are. The very big, very bad bill is Project 2025 put into law. It makes the tax cuts permanent and expands them. The largest tax cut in U.S. history, almost all of it going to the top, I was going to say top 1%. It's not even that. It's like the top 0.1%. It's the top couple of hundred families. Work requirements for Medicaid and food assistance will eliminate otherwise eligible folks from the program because that's what work requirements are designed to do. They're designed to be confusing and complicated. You fill out a form incorrectly, you miss a deadline, you get too frustrated with how complicated it is, you can't find the right documentation to prove that you've been working or volunteering. There are 100 different ways that they can eliminate you by imposing so-called work requirements. They know it, that's why they're doing it. There's no such thing as lazy, able-bodied people scamming the system. That's their new version of the welfare queen. It's a boogeyman, doesn't exist. It's their lie. It ends any sort of medical benefits for undocumented immigrants. So access to any sort of public health programs is eliminated or tightened. Yeah, that's good for public health. Oh, my neighbor who's technically, she's undocumented, but she lives here with her citizen husband and children and has lived here for 25 years, and she volunteers at the school and she works down at the plant. And but she shouldn't have any access to public health. No. It expands the heinous mass deportation program being carried out as we speak, regardless of what the Orange Menace said a couple of weeks ago about having some leniency for good workers. Yeah, that came out of his mouth, but it meant nothing at all to Tom Homan and his plain-clothed, masked thugs out abducting people on the street and in their homes and in their schools and in their churches and in their workplace. So, yeah, Tom Homan and Ice Barbie and their Gestapo abductions are running out of money. The very big, very bad bill gives them millions and millions and millions to continue to expand their attack on American decency. What else does the bill include straight out of Project 2025? No taxes on tips and overtime, which sounds good, but that's another scam. Most people who would benefit from this don't make enough to itemize in the first place, so it makes no difference at all to them. Plus, it's unfair. There are a lot of low-wage workers who don't get tips, who don't work overtime. So it's completely unfair and won't even work for the people it's designed to work for. So don't be fooled by the no tax on tips and overtime. That's a total scam. It further restricts abortions. Their goal, of course, is to eliminate all abortions and to criminalize abortion and to jail women and their doctors. Read Project 2025, read the bill. Transgender people are to be eliminated, according to Project 2025. Transgender doesn't even exist. It's a bogus ideology that has to be eliminated, according to Project 2025. That's in the bill. You're also going to hear about the child tax credit, and the headline's going to look good, but it's another scam. These so-called MAGA accounts. No, don't believe any of that. Increases military and national security funding by billions. We're up to and over the long-anticipated trillion-dollar annual Pentagon budget. Eliminates federal funding for basic services to the poor, most notably SNAP, that guarantees nutrition for people in need. That's just gone. Oh, they say they're going to shift responsibility to the states. Yeah, good luck with that. None of this makes sense. Ideological changes pushed by far right-wingers for decades, like reduced student loans, being tougher on student debt, civil rights enforcement. We've already seen that happening. Any civil rights enforcement from the federal government is virtually gone as we speak. And the very big, very bad bill takes the language right out of Project 2025 to put the final nail in the coffin on federally protected civil rights. So it's the far right-wing dream that they've tried to sell the public since Goldwater. The voters never bought it. The voters never let it happen. Why do you think they hate democracy so much? Because they know under a real democracy where the people make the decisions, none of this stuff happens. It's all wildly unpopular with 60, 70, 80, sometimes 90% of the public. That's why they hate democracy. That's why they have to go all in for authoritarianism. But now they've got power. They wrangled power. They found the buffoon to put in front of the cameras and to make the big Mussolini-type mugging and shouting. Yeah, they found a way. But they had to eliminate democracy first. That's the only way they were going to pass this agenda. And yes, they found their Il Duce, which I'll close with here because this is an essential component of both Project 2025 and the very big, very bad bill, and that is to consolidate power into the presidency, to snatch power from independent agencies and other branches of government. The very big, very bad bill grants the president sweeping authority to reorganize, consolidate, or eliminate federal agencies, power he doesn't currently have. Eliminates congressional oversight, or minimizes it. The bill gives $100 million to OMB, whose director, of course, is Russ Vought, architect of Project 2025. Yeah, Russ Vought gets $100 million to execute these changes at the OMB, pretty much gutting all traditional checks and balances that would otherwise come from Congress and the courts. It puts limits on independent agencies. The Orange Menace has been using his so-called executive orders to do this for months now, all of it illegal, to restructure agencies, to eliminate them altogether, to take away their funding. It's all illegal. The courts have told him so over and over and over. Well, you know what? As soon as he signs the very big, very bad bill, won't be illegal anymore. It gives him these powers to reign over independent agencies. Well, they won't be independent anymore. Congressional oversight is officially curtailed and in their oversight responsibilities. The very big, very bad bill codifies Project 2025. It makes all of his law breaking in the first several months now legal. It makes the illegal legal. It makes the unthinkable thinkable. All of this executive control is designed in the law to last for at least a decade because they're designed to be cost neutral, which means even if the Democrats get back into power, they can't change these rules without a 60-vote filibuster-proof majority, which is unlikely. So understand this. They're not only doing horrible things in this bill, they're writing it in such a clever and concise way that it's irreversible. They're fixing it so the executive cannot be subject to lawsuits, making it easier for the president to lay off federal employees, to dismantle parts of the bureaucracy, with no judicial or legislative interference. So, yes, the very big, very bad bill follows the Project 2025 blueprint. It centralizes unprecedented power in the presidency. It strips independent agencies of their ability to serve the American people. It strips the Congress of their oversight role. It strips the courts of their ability to rein in the executive. It creates an imperial presidency. You heard of the Enabling Act in Germany of the 1930s that gave Adolf Hitler his unprecedented power. That's exactly what we're looking at here. All right, before we go, events and boycotts coming up. Several pop-up rallies, protests around the nation happening right now as we speak regarding the Iran strike. The next major protest currently planned is the so-called Good Trouble Lives On Day of Action. That's July 17th, so mark your calendar, make your plans. July 17th, it's another big coalition nationwide call for everybody to hit the streets. Good Trouble, of course, is a reference to the late Representative John Lewis, American hero, activist, and he called on all of us to make good trouble. So go to the sites, go to your groups. You can also go to goodtroubleliveson.org. Also, I want to mention June 28th is the anniversary of the 1969 Stonewall Uprising. Began in the early morning hours in New York City when the police raided the Stonewall Inn and sparked a several days long uprising. It's come to be recognized as sort of the birth of the LGBTQ movement. Trans women at the heart, at the center of that particular incident and the movement that followed. And now trans folks are the ones at the center of the attack. So, mark your calendar for June 28th and find an event where you are. I know here in Milwaukee, 6 p.m. Cathedral Square, June 28th. Come and support our LGBTQ friends and family and stand up against the regime's attack on them. The boycott of the week is McDonald's. Please make that a permanent boycott, but if you can't, at least boycott them for this coming week. And look ahead to July 4th, which is our Independence Day boycott. And then July 8th through the 11th is Amazon Prime Day, or as 5051 is calling it, Boycott Crime Day. All right, so July 8th through 11th, we're boycotting Amazon. And as always, I ask you, please make that permanent. All right, from a very hot and muggy Milwaukee, Wisconsin, thanks for listening. Go to your favorite podcast platform to hear the show anytime, or to the website charlesburcell.com. Our flagship terrestrial station is River West Radio. Find me on Blue Sky and Substack. Peter Donalds wrote and performed the theme song. All right, I love you. See you out there.